Memphis track boy, let's go, let's go, let's go.
My Colorado swing. My Colorado swing. My Colorado swing.
Welcome back into the 2025 Top Buffs Countdown, our final group on this year's countdown, joined by William Gardner to break down these 6 phenomenal Buffaloes leading up to the season. Let's go to number 6. And receiver / offensive athlete Drayon Miller comes in number 7 on both of our lists, William. Anxious to see how much he moves around and kind of the different ways they utilize his strengths. You know, he's a guy that had somewhat modest stats last year as a true freshman, but that was because of who was ahead of him in the pecking order.
Yeah, and I think, he even at that, he started the first game and had some huge plays last season. That one touchdown play where he dragged 3 dudes across the goal line is still, I think, to me, one of the unbelievable plays of the whole season, and just shows his abilities, and still got 32 catches. I just think that he brings so much to the table. It's always funny to me when I start doing this. Like you ask me any offensive, defensive lineman, I'm going to know what their sizes are and everything else, but I lose track of the skill guys. And I swear to God, before we started doing this, if you'd asked me how big is Drayon Miller, I said, I don't know, 5'10", 185. Dude's 6'1", 200, man.
When he was out of pro timing day,
he's a big damn dude.
He could have passed for a senior out there for sure.
Yeah. I just didn't realize he was that tall. That he was 6'1". So he's a guy that brings a big body to the position. He may be as close to the talent level of Travis Hunter as anybody we have on the team this year, frankly, to be able to do all the different kinds of things. So we'll see what he brings in his second season here. I think it's going to be pretty exciting.
Yeah. I think the thing is, when you've got like a lanky person, their height kind of maybe stands out a little bit more, but Drayon's just a well put together guy. So 6'1" doesn't maybe look as tall on him just because he's got those big shoulders.
Yeah, and he's a big, thick kid, and I think he's going to get bigger and thicker. But, I don't know, probably if you showed us both in a picture with our shirts off, you wouldn't be able to tell which one is which. You don't got to laugh so hard, what the heck. But I think, I don't know, Drayon Miller to me is, again, like we talked about Amari Miller on the last one we did. Drayon Miller is also at the same talent level as the guys we lost last year too. So I know people certainly outside of Bowler think, well, we lost all those wide receivers and we're not going to have as much this year. But I don't think this wide receiver room drops a bit, frankly, compared to last year, even without Travis Hunter. I don't know that we have anybody that's quite the magician he is, but across the board, we got 5 or 6 or 7. I caught a lot of grief last week from people because I didn't give enough credence, I guess, to Sincere Brown. But it's not a knock on Sincere Brown. It's just a reality of how many dudes are in this room.
And we'll see what Jason Phillips wants to do. He's hinted that, it's going to be a deeper rotation this year, which I think you have to do. But, if a guy's cooking, you're not taking him off the field.
Right.
And I think Jason Phillips is too smart of a guy to do that. Like, obviously, with his pedigree as an NFL receiver himself. So I think that this rotation, while it's hard to figure out for this countdown, beyond, I think, Drayon and Omarion and maybe Joseph Williams, gosh, and then you just want to keep naming guys off. That's where the depth is, right? But it's going to play itself out. Unfortunately, injuries are part of the game, and you're going to have guys that are just kind of the cream, as they say, rises to the top, and it's going to be really fun to see. But if Drayon Miller's not one of those guys that does that, then I'd be shocked.
And, every year, we come into the season every year, we're looking at guys, and there's always the guys that step forward and become that guy, in the first game or something. And then they find, this may be the group where it's a different guy every week,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. I think that would be probably a way to recap the season. This is the Drayon Miller win. This is the Amari Miller win because of some big play they made, that propelled them Because I keep thinking back to that game with LeJontay Wester in that catch, and I'm like, I will never forget that catch. That is,
Yeah, the one right at the end of the game against Baylor.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
and that kind of body control and ball awareness and ball skills and whatever,
yeah.
the only thing, again, like I said about Amari and Miller, the only question mark, quite frankly, with this group of wide receivers is can we get one of those quarterbacks to get them the ball regularly? But I also think that this group's going to have. I think we're going to see a lot of dudes running wide open in the middle of the damn field with this group because I don't think people can cover them.
Yeah. And I think with Drayon Miller, he's so versatile and good in open space that you don't need to have, the most accurate quarterback in the country to be able to get into big plays.
Yeah. And let's go back to that. Let's go back to that touchdown he had. You ain't bringing this dude down with a cornerback. Ain't happening. He'll run you damn over.
Yeah. The crazy thing is you mentioned this, that he played early last season. He had the first 2 touches of the 2024 Colorado football season, a rushing attempt and a short catch. Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, he brings a lot to the table, and I don't know, who's our next Heisman Trophy winner? One of these guys might be it,
Well, you love this guy, so I'm excited to jump up to number 5 on the 2025 Top Buffs Countdown, and we're going to be talking about defensive lineman Amari McNeel. 6 on my list, 4 on your list. William, we were kind of separated with some of our picks, but as we got closer to the top of this list, I mean, our votes were pretty similar.
Yeah, because our last, we had both had Samuel and Lola at 8. We both had Drayon at 7, and here we got 6 and 4. And I look, we go down to the number 1 where we all 6 of these guys we both had the top 7.
Yeah.
So, yeah, and I think Amari McNeel is the most underrated guy on this team. I don't think people really have an understanding of what he did, because he started his last 3 games last year. He played in the first 11, but didn't start so he didn't really start coming on until later in the season. And what he did in those last 3 games as a starter was nuts. He had a couple of some. I like to look at the things that they did because people they think sacks or whatever or tackle, but he had 6 tackles for loss. This is a defensive tackle, man. He had 4 third down stops, 3.5 sacks. Does anybody remember that Amari McNeel had 3.5 sacks as defensive tackle? I bet most of them don't. 3 quarterback hurries, 2 fourth down stops, which means that the whole
turnover
damn thing,
basically.
It's right. 2 fourth down stops. One of them was the one where a block bully was pushing the line back, but it was Amari McNeel that got underneath everybody and got the dude's foot. So 2 fourth down stops, 1 forced fumble, 1 block kick. Against Texas Tech, he had 9 total tackles, 3 tackles for a loss, 1.5 sacks. I mean, he just ate Texas Tech alive. It was nuts. And I don't think that anybody really understands how good Amari McNeel was last year. And the year before, he did the same thing, really kind of came on towards the end of the year and really started making a name for himself. I think this year, right from the start, he's a different defensive tackle than Jaheim Otis and Anquan Barnes. He doesn't have that sheer mass. He's going to be a 6'4", 305 guy, but he's so athletic and quick and got long arms and get guys off of him, and I think people probably forget that he started out at Tennessee. So he was never a guy that was coming out of nowhere. This guy always had that talent. And I think he's an All-American prospect this year based on what he did in those last few games before he got hurt last year. So I am super excited to see him on the field this year. And I think he's going to make some offensive linemen look real stupid in this conference.
We talked in the last countdown about Amari Miller and just talking about his upside in those flashes that he's shown.
Right.
Amari, from a defensive side, has shown similar flashes.
Right.
It's this feeling that, like, man, when they put it all together, the upside is through the roof. And I agree with you. It's been watching him through his college career. It's been this linear progression of just getting better, but still kind of searching for that consistency. But there was, what was it, about a 3-4 game stretch last year where he was as good as any defensive lineman, at least, in the Big 12.
Right. And so here's the thing. So Amari McNeel, like, when you're a guy who consistently makes fourth down stops and third down stops, what that tells me is you step up when the game is on the line, right? What he needs to learn to do is step up on first and second down. Okay. Give that same thing on first and second down that you gave on third and fourth down, and you'll get drafted. That's where the consistency needs to come in. Is well, he's a guy. If we're down, and it was fourth and 6 inches on the goal line, and if they score, they win, and we stop them, we win. He's got to be out there.
Mm-hmm.
He's got to be out there. I don't give a damn who you got on the defensive line, because he will find that extra. He finds that extra thing at the moments that he needs it the most. And so what he needs to learn to do is find that extra amount in the lesser moments. Do it 4 downs instead of just 2 downs, and that's what he needs to find this year.
Well, hopefully Amari gives us some more reasons to gush over him in the coming months, because he's a really fun football player to watch when he is doing his thing out there.
Well, and we're in the top 6 players on the team, man. If you don't want to hear gushing, probably just check out right now, because it ain't going to get any less.
Yeah. Well, this one's a little different, though. You got something else to add on, Amari, before we get to the next one?
I was going to say, when we get down to number 1, you're probably not going to get a word in.
All right. Number 4 is Nickelback Preston Hodgej. Number 4 on my list, number 5 on your list. This is a consistency vote for me. Avery Johnson put a beautiful pass in there in that Kansas State game. Preston Hodgej was right there. And I thought the rest of the season he was pretty darn, probably in the top 5 guys you could count on when they run out there on defense.
If you don't have, if you don't have DJ McKini and Travis Hunter out there, you're talking about this dude all the time, every week, right? But, when you're playing with those 2 guys, when you're playing with the Heisman Trophy winner, you get forgotten. And I think people forget about this guy. Like you said, every single week he showed up. And I think a lot of people on our board, for example, they all they remember him is that one play against Kansas State, right? And he made a good damn play, but those other guys are players too, man. And you go up and you go to battle, and sometimes the other guy wins. But
I was on field level, and I've never seen a ball placed any better than that one was.
Yeah. And still he almost got it, and so I think Preston Hodgej is a guy that we've said this about quite a few guys in these countdowns, is this is another guy that's forgotten by. This is where I keep saying there is so much more talent on this team than people are aware. And this is one of those guys.
And a real gift, because Preston Hodgej we thought was going to be done last season. Yeah. And then there was a junior college player that sued and got an extra year for everybody that was at the JUCO level for this upcoming season. So what a gift to be able to get Preston Hodgej back and for him to be able to get some NIL money at this point. He'll have a chance in the NFL. If not, he'll have some money in the Canadian Football League or wherever, but he's got a future in football. For him to be able to get that extra year, though, now that this is one of the benefits of NIL, William, is that, before Preston would have to probably go off to go support himself, get some money, but now he gets to come back. So, we all, and I, myself included, gripe about NIL, but at times, but this is one area that it's kind of cool to be able to see a guy stay in college as opposed to having to go off to be a professional.
Yeah. I like to pull up the bio page, because there's always things I didn't know. For example, even though he missed 4 games for injury last year, he was still honorable mention all Big 12 from the coaches. I mean, the other coaches see it,
Yeah. So
here's another guy that really is just the highest level of talent in this team. So I think it's exciting. The other thing that kind of is funny to me is that he was at Liberty that year that Caden Salter had his big year.
Yep. Yeah, he was. So looking forward to that. I think he's going to make some big plays for them and just be kind of this steadying force, being in that nickelback role, which is, it's one of those where you almost want to put a younger player kind of out there to get a few reps in there before you have an underclassman playing a ton of nickelback. Preston being this wily veteran now at this point, I think is such a great spot for him to be in and for this program to be able to have him. At number 3 is edge Ardan Walker. Number 3 on my list. Number 2 on your list, William. I voted for Ardan Walker to be on the preseason All Big 12 list. He was not on there. I think, like you do, because we've talked about this so many times, that he is the most underrated player on this football team.
Yeah,
not the conference.
Yeah, and I think that when you look at what he did overall, and I think, and again, people only judge edge players by their sacks, and I think there was also this just absolutely wrong narrative last year that he was not holding up against the run, or that he was one-dimensional.
Who said that? They need to stop making comments about football if that's the case.
Right. This guy is fantastic against the run. You cannot run to his side because he will turn it back in, and if the linebacker's not there, that's on the linebacker. But
it's not always on him too. He's setting a great edge. If somebody else misses their key, that's not on him. He sets an amazing edge.
Yeah, and he's still at that. He still had 4.5 sacks last year, and 6.5 tackles for loss, 5 quarterback hurries. We had a lot more hurries and such than I thought, from watching it during the season. So when I was doing this program and doing my homework, I'm like, we had a lot of guys that were a lot better on the field than what people think they
led the Big 12 in sacks last year.
Yeah, so. And those guys all, and because nobody had like 10 plus, nobody stands out, but there was a lot of guys that had a lot of things. And, he's another guy against Texas Tech, 2 sacks, 2 tackles for loss, forced fumble, that Shiloh returned for a touchdown, and so, Ardan Walker is another guy. I knew his dad when he played at CU, Arthur Walker, and he was, part of the H boys and an integral part of those 1990 and 91 teams, at defensive tackle. And I don't know if he's still coaching Cherry Creek, but he was a while ago, so he's a legacy. Arden's a legacy. And he went to Missouri to begin with, but then, and I don't blame him for that, because I wouldn't have stayed here under that coaching staff, but then he came home, and he's been just a credit to the Colorado program in every way. He's another one like Sammy Okunlola, man. He doesn't run his mouth, and so he doesn't get as much of the attention, I think, that he deserves sometimes. So he's a quiet guy, not seeking
He's a little bit more talkative than Samuel. He's got a really cool personality. But yeah, no, he's not going to talk about himself.
Right.
He's gonna be a great teammate. And you ask anybody on this program, around this program, staff, players, like who stepped up as a leader. I don't know if one has not mentioned Ardan Walker this entire
offseason. Right. This off season, he's been one of those guys. I would venture to say that he might be the equivalent of Cameron Silmon Craig on this.
The heartbeat. Yeah.
Yeah. An edge is a good place to have that guy because you get your front 7 set, whatever. And I was just thinking to myself that given the ability of we talked about this with some other guys, with Keaton Wade, for example, given the ability of Robert Livingston to put guys in positions to use their abilities, I can't help but think that, Livingston, when he came in last year, didn't know all these guys. Now he does. Mm-hmm. Okay. I have to think he looks at Ardan Walker and says, I'm going to turn this dude loose this year, man.
We're going to see exactly how much of a mad scientist Robert Livingston is, right? With now that experience, because you're right. I mean, especially coming in from the NFL ranks after being in it for 13 years, to get to this level and have the success he did in year 1, it's like, Okay, like you're not worried about a sophomore slump with Robert Livingston, but how exactly exciting can this be, right?
Right. And it's also, that the way that works, it's not just the defensive coordinator sitting in his office game planning and mixing things together. I mean, I've coached defensive line as much as I've coached the offensive line, and on good defenses, I go in and talk with the defensive coordinator. He say, Bill, here's what I want this week, man, and what can you give me? How are you going to do this? Who are you going to play? Who are you going to play? And where do you want to? How do you want to use them? And who's going to be your starter at this position this year? And blah blah blah. So, it's a collaboration. I'm real excited to see, a guy like Joe Pecco, who describes himself as a coach on the field for his last 5 years in the NFL. What's he going to bring to that equation too? I mean, I don't know, man. If you can't get excited about this CU team, I don't know what to tell you.
And there's a reason that George Hilo was named as
Right.
Vincent Dancy's successor, because he and Livingston really their brains mesh well together from a defensive standpoint. And we talked about Kevin Mathis on this countdown earlier about being kind of this quiet savant that's up there in the Champion Center. So yeah, I really like this defensive staff.
Wasn't Hilo the one in the box and Livingston was down below, or was it vice versa? Or were they both up there? Right?
Livingston was down on the field.
Yeah, because Hilo was really kind of a
Hilo was his eyes and ears as he put it up in the box.
Right. Because he's kind of a defensive genius, and so all these guys are. I mean, you say what you want. One of the things about Coach Prime is that he has enough self-confidence that he's not threatened by bringing in dudes that know as much as he does. Okay, that was crappy English, but you get my point. Because he has brought in some phenomenal guys on this defensive staff, and I just, like you said, I just can't wait to see what they cook up this year.
Number 2 on the 2025 Top Buffs Countdown is cornerback DJ McKinney. Number 2 on my list, number 3 on Williams. So really this is 2A, 2B with he and Ardan Walker. DJ was one of 2 preseason all Big 12 selections as voted on by the media. Of course, he was on my list. As much as I thought he was fantastic last year, there were times I'm like, man, he can get even better. And so, this is another guy where that progress has been linear since he went to Oklahoma State and then redshirted there, then played quite a bit as a redshirt freshman, transfers to Colorado and really shined. I mean, it didn't take long in his first spring ball with the Buffs in 2024 for folks to be like, this is a future NFL guy. And he certainly lived up to it next year. And what are your thoughts on him and where this is going to look for him going into 2025?
Yeah, I mean, I think, at 6'2", 190, he's another guy, who has first round NFL potential. And I don't think there's a big drop off from Travis Hunter to him at that cornerback spot. And so once again, Livingston will have the luxury of having a shutdown guy. Whoever their top guy is, you take him out of the game, right? And so we have that kind of a guy, and that gives you lots of options on a defense, man. So I think DJ McKinney, is possibly, and he's actually still fairly young in terms of his eligibility too. But he's a guy I think that also will be playing himself very high up into the NFL draft, and we'll start doing it this year. I think he's one of the best cornerback, if not the best cornerback in the conference.
I thought this a couple times, and especially getting a chance to interview him in person at Big 12 Media Days, is that there's a lot that reminds me of him, of Jimmy Smith, a former Buff cornerback that went on to play for the Baltimore Ravens in the NFL for over a decade. Do you see some of those similarities in his game to what we saw from Jimmy?
Well, I don't watch the defensive backs a whole lot. I'm always watching the guys up front. So I'm the last one to talk about specific similarities between guys, but that would certainly be a good. What do you think of the similarities between the two? The
length and the size and the physicality, and just being kind of, they don't get punked out there. You talked about AJ Green comparison with Amari Miller on our last segment, and I think back to that game in Colorado. I'm not going to throw his name out there to slander him, but this is a guy that actually went on to play in the NFL for a little while, was getting abused by AJ Green in the first half. They put Jimmy Smith on him, and all of a sudden, AJ Green was having to work his butt off for everything in that game.
Right. Became more normal,
Yeah.
more normal guy. So yeah, and those kinds of guys are you can be great defensive backs, but then there's a whole other level, that has to take on guys like that. And I think we got a guy that can do that again this year.
Yeah. With DJ McKinney, he could go off to the NFL this coming year. I think, that's something that you would be cheering for, right? That means a great season.
Yeah, I think he's a potential could play himself into the top half of the first round. Because those shutdown kind of corners with his kind of size and measurables are not easy to find. And so if he becomes the dominant guy and shuts down all the number one wide receivers in this conference, and particularly if we have the kind of season I think we will, he if you're going to be drafted in the first round, there's no reason to stick around. It's time to go find your next adventure, man. And selfishly, I want all these guys to stay here forever. But when it's time to go, it's time to go.
If you get a wide open starting job in Boulder with Deion Sanders as your head coach, Coach Prime is going to be able to recruit a transfer guy or a top level recruit. So
and look, if you got Travis Hunter as the first pick in the draft this year, and you get DJ McKinney in the first round here, you go out and say, okay, fellas, who wants to be next, man? Spot's open, come and get it. Yeah. And then you've got to stand at the door and say, no. All right, we'll give you a shot. Nah. Okay, maybe you in the back come up here. And that's what you do, is you just, because I think that's a big theme for this season is it's year 3 for Coach Prime, and it's time for him to prove all these doubters wrong. The first year is he's not sticking around, he doesn't know how to coach. The second year it's all because of Shador and Travis, and then this is the year I think where he comes up and goes, look, shows everybody he knows what the hell he's doing, and we got talent here. He gets the wins and puts the guys in the NFL draft, and then all of a sudden, everybody thinks it's all NIL, but some guys are smart enough to realize that the money at the next level makes the money here look like peanuts, right? If you're in the right position. And so you get a guy, and we see, a lot of these defensive line guys are saying this in the transfer portal and whatever is when they come here is this staff can get me into the NFL at a high level, and really make some money, so there's a lot of reasons that cause people to come play someplace, but given the ability to develop guys into sure thing NFL draft picks is going to draw a lot of dudes.
And I'm not turning this into an NIL discussion, but if the house settlement actually works, I have my reservations. If it does, Colorado provides a clearer path to true, authentic name, image, and likeness than most Power 4 programs. Not all of them, but because of Coach Prime, a lot of them. And so, yeah, right. That's going to kind of.
If we're winning 9 games every year and he's still our coach, who's going to have more access to being seen, I guess is a better way to put it, than here?
Nope. Nobody out there.
Yeah.
Number 1.
Dun, 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 dun. When's the last
I don't think there's a whole lot of suspense this year.
We had an offensive lineman as the number 1 player on the team, and it ain't charity or nothing else either.
I would have to go back and look. Yeah, I know Tim Lynott was really highly ranked going into 17 because he was a freshman All-American in 16, but there's no way he was number 1 on that list. Oh. Were we doing the list back when Nate Solder was here? David Bakhtiari wasn't all that productive because a lot of the pieces around him stunk, and he was still developing. So he didn't. Yeah, I
had him ranked very highly. I don't think you guys did because I watched him and I knew what it was very clear to me what his talent and technique and everything. And Nate Solder the same, but those were also on teams with lesser talent too, so they should be near the top, but.
Well, I'll let you unveil who's number one on this year's 2025 Top Buffs Countdown, William Gardner.
Well, I've been saying all summer long as we started doing this, there's only one person at number one, and you better have the right guy there, or else I'm done with you, Mister. And you got it right because Jordan Seaton was your number one.
We get to keep doing the podcast together.
Yeah, right.
That's
so
exciting.
Yeah, dodged the bullet on that one, but there really, since the end of last season, there really isn't any question, and he's made it even more so with what he's done this summer. But Jordan Seaton is if he doesn't get injured, he's a top 5 draft pick. Because left tackles, there's a premium, and he's got everything you need. And one thing that I think everybody's seen the photos of Jordan, and he has totally changed his body. And he's down. He said recently he's at 305, and he looks like a bodybuilder. Now I'm going to tell you, he's not going to stay at that. He'll play in the NFL at 320. He'll put a little bit of that padding back on, but he has transformed his body in the time he's been here in a miraculous way. And for a guy playing as a true freshman last year, his success at left tackle in a Power 4 conference was really phenomenal. And as I think we talked about recently, I think you said he had a couple of sacks in the first 2 or 3 games, and then no more after that. Is I think. But he was so dominant at that position as a true freshman, and he'll only get better. The technique will improve, the strength will improve. I think he'll do things. And again, you and I talked a little bit about. No, I think we were actually talking about Philip Houston in that regard. And that's the thing about learning the speed of the game, So when you step in as a true freshman at a left tackle, regardless of how talented you are, you don't understand the speed of the game until you get a couple games under your belt. Well, Philip Houston or Jordan Seaton understands it now, and he's going to be so much more improved this year than last year. And I'm looking at his bio here, and he had 612 pass blocking snaps. He only allowed 3 sacks. Didn't allow a sack in 11 of 13 games, and 10 straight from Colorado State through Oklahoma State. And this is playing a Power 4 schedule. So that's truly phenomenal output. And now the thing for him is to continue to refine his game, get a little more powerful in the run game, and just continue to refine that technique and build himself. He's one of the top 3 or 4 tackles in the entire country to me. He's not going to be listed that way in all the preseason stuff because they haven't seen enough of him. But by the end of this coming season, he will be. I will be shocked if he's not, in the talk for a first team All-American this year.
And beyond just what he does on the field, he is outside of Coach Prime and some other figures, Marshall Faulk you throw in there, Warren Sapp, but he's one of the biggest figures in this football program right now. Yeah. What's that?
I said, talk about that a little bit.
Well, it goes beyond just, he's got a big personality, but it's one of those things where he brings other people along with him. He's comfortable in his own skin. He's comfortable with being a guy that can joke around with guys and lead guys. It's very hard to find that in a true sophomore. And credit to him, this is something he talked about at media days, is that it was kind of his decision to go to IMG Academy. His parents were okay with it, but he kind of saw what he wanted to do with his life, and he's been checking off these goals one by one, and he gets a Maybach gifted to him, and he's got NIL money. And for a lot of guys that are 19 years old, that could really throw you off track. And if anything, it seems to motivate him even more, and so he's a very unique person. One of the more unique individuals that have come through the program, just from a mature beyond his year standpoint, and just a charisma, backing it up with just being an absolute boss with strength and conditioning, and being that leader by example type on top of being the vocal leader. So he really is kind of that total package. Now he is a true sophomore, and he's still learning, and he's going to have to lean on a guy like Zy Chrysler for experience in certain situations because he has not been through the wars as many times as a few of these other guys have, just having 1 year of college experience. But given his lack of experience, to me, William, he's checked every box for me.
Yeah, and I think Coach Prime was talking down at media days about respect for the game, and I think Jordan Seaton represents that to me because I'm not going to mention the other guy's name that we dropped off recruiting this year, but Jordan Seaton has never put himself ahead of the game, and he as good as he is, he understands that his key to the future is working even harder and getting better, and so he comes in with humility and he seeks advice from older players and from his strength coach and from everybody else, and he does everything he has to do to keep developing himself, and I think that's going to set him forth. I mean, people look at that photo of him and like, that is not his NFL body. Okay, it's going to be a very different thing, and he is not really close to being an NFL player, but he will be by the end of this year because people don't really understand. I mean, he's so young, and I think we talked about this about another guy last week or something, but men in general do not hit their physical prime until their mid-20s, and that's because they don't start to produce testosterone at the highest levels until that point. And especially at offensive tackle where it's so technique intensive, he will be an entirely different player in 4 years than he is now. He'll be bigger, he'll be stronger, he'll be quicker, and the limits of his abilities are there almost are none. I mean, he'll be the third CU buff to be the best tackle in the NFL in 10 years. After Bakhtiari and Solder. And interestingly enough, they're all
not necessarily after. I mean, just with those guys.
Well, right. Well, I mean, but chronologically coming.
Oh, got it. Yeah.
And the funny thing is, all three of them are very different offensive tackles, and I don't know. I probably ever didn't want to go into the theory of offensive tackle play, but they're very different. All three of them are very different guys. And very different body types and very different technique guys. And I don't know, as an offensive line guy, it's a lot of fun for me. We're gonna be offense. We're gonna be left tackle U, LTU. That'll be who we are from now on. Left tackle U. We'll just keep pumping them into the NFL. But Jordan Seaton, is as good a player as there is in the Big 12 conference this year. He's going to dominate his position. It's kind of like that. We were talking about what does it do for Livingston to have a guy like DJ McKinney who can shut down the top receiver for the other team, and what does it do for Shermer to have a left tackle that you don't have to give a thought to this guy? It's like they're not going to they're not going to run their best pass rusher on your blind side, because what's the use? Why put your best pass rusher against Jordan Seaton, because he's going to get beat. So other teams are going to have to move that guy and rush him at different spots and change their defense. We're used to hearing about it. Change your defense because of a guy like Travis Hunter, right? When you got to change your defense because of our left tackle, that creates a problem for you. Okay. And that's what Jordan Seaton, in addition to his abilities and talents, brings to the table here. And it's just going to be exciting and fun to watch.
And he's only a true sophomore, so he's got another year of college eligibility after 2025. And like you said, he's not a finished product, but he's making it's kind of like when I go back to looking at this Colorado program since Coach Prime took over, and I'm trying to take kind of a macro view of things instead of a micro view of things. And you're looking at these transfer windows and you're going, every one of these windows, they keep getting better. This past window, they lost a couple guys and it was a little bit more debatable, but it's more because the spring window, as we've discussed, is turning into more trading backup players or guys that are, potential starting guys. Where was I going with this? What did I just say? I gotta edit this out.
The spring window being.
Oh yeah. And so when I look at Jordan Seaton, you similarly kind of take that macro view of things, and man, it's been like every stretch of time, there's just this incremental improvement, and he's been comfortable in his skin, like I said, from day one at Colorado. And so it seems like that's just kind of just continued to catapult him. And I can't see that slowing down. Like I would imagine this trajectory, when you look at what he's produced so far in college, is going to continue. And we're going to be, talking about another star-studded Pro Timing Day event in Boulder, a year from April.
And what you remind me of, because we just were saying the same thing about trajectory for Amari McNeel, and Ardan Walker. And, to some extent, it's a credit to those individual players. But for 3 straight years, these guys have been on the same pretty straight trajectory. It says a hell of a lot for the coaching staff, too.
Because, it hasn't always been the case. Yeah.
Right. And it's across the board with so many guys, Anquin Barnes, all of a sudden the lights come on, it's not an accident. These coaches are developing these players. Over the last 10, 15 years, I've said so many times coaching matters. And everybody's like, oh, the talent sucks. I don't give a damn how good the talent is. If you don't make them better, you're not going to win the games. And so, I don't know, Jordan Seaton we're segueing into all kinds of different things. He lets you open doors, into all kinds of discussions about football. We didn't even mention the fact that his signing, gave Coach Prime instant credibility, with the 5-star and, let you. And again, we talked about like with Travis Hunter and then DJ McKinney and guys getting drafted. If Jordan Seaton goes and gets drafted in the top round, then you can start talking about you develop offensive linemen too, So there's just so much positive and upside, and plus he's a hell of a great leader, and you see him out there, and there's so much to be brought to the table by having guys on a team who are all good leaders and not all out for themselves.
Yeah, it was second team All-American. We'll see if he lives up to our expectations. Maybe he could be a first team All-American. There have not been a ton of those in the last couple of decades at Colorado. Obviously, last year produced a couple, and so we'll see. Any closing thoughts here on Jordan Seaton? I'm excited to finish this list because I know what's around the corner, and that's preseason camp.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that's exciting for Jordan this year is last year there were some problems at that guard spot and they platoon guys and whatever, but he's going to be playing probably more than likely he's going to be playing next to some 230 or 340 pound dudes this year. And he's going to find out it's a lot more fun when you got guys nearly as good as you in that size to play this game. And so that's going to be a really positive thing for him, I think, to have that better talent next to him.
Awesome, William. This was a lot of fun. We enjoy it every year. Thanks for voting on it and breaking each of these groups down. It's one of those things where we have this schedule. I'm like, oh man, it's going to be a couple hours. And then we get into it and it's so much fun.
Right. And it was a lot of fun this year because right from, when I go back and like I printed out my list and the others I considered strongly in the honorable mention guys would have been high up in the top 40 most previous years. So right from the start, we were talking about guys who are going to be good players and really do things. So it's been an exciting year to talk about it. And I think some of the guys that we didn't make our top 40 are going to be surprises, and in the final season, top 40 will be in there.
Yeah, definitely. We'll be back next week to preview preseason camp. Again, that's right around the corner. Thanks everybody out there for tuning in.